Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. To the DC 37 retirees, this message is for you. Today was a very stressful day for many of you. Of the retirees that showed up to today's judicial panel hearing, for many of you, that was your first time. I know it was mine in actually watching something like that, and I found it extremely disturbing. Some of the things you don't know is we actually asked for an attorney to help represent us. We were denied that. So to me, that's a denial of due process. To watch some of the conversations between the attorney that was representing Lee Saunders, Michael Arst, and Ann Widger, asking her questions to enter her testimony into the record, was a lot of it was pure speculation. She intimated things that were supposedly wrongdoing that they really could not pinpoint any real wrongdoing on their part. Did the Retirees Association file a 990 for the last 6 years? No, they did not. Were they wrong in that? Yes, they were. However, being a subordinate organization to DC 37, Henry Garrido, AFSCME International under Ann Widger, they had these two parent organizations that should have helped and guided them. Ann Widger admitted she was on these meetings with the administrative board, the executive board of DC 37 Retirees Association, the president and vice president, for 2 years. In those 2 years, did any of this ever come up? No, she said. Well, if you're the leader of the retirees for the international, why didn't that become a concern of yours anytime in the past 2 years? To me, that is a shirking of their responsibility. DC 37, DC 37, the union, the treasurer is Maf Misbah Udin. He sends out a letter every year to his unions telling them that their documentation is due. Why wasn't that done to the Retirees Association? Their name's on the letterhead. They go to their meetings. Why aren't they included in that same kind of checks and balance? If Moff has to be in charge of those other 60-something unions, why is he not overlooking the Retirees Association, and the retirees are subordinate to the union, right? How did this become known? That's another very interesting thing, and I had to clear the record on that too. Actually, there were a few things I had to clear the record on that Ms. Widger got wrong, and the only place she would have gotten that from is Henry Garrido from DC 37. So let's break that down. Ms. Widger said that they feel that the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees was a competing organization to AFSCME or to DC 37 retirees. I don't understand how that's possible. If we're all retired, the retirees and us were fighting on the same page. Where was there a competingness to anything? We were both united in that effort to fight for our health benefits. She said that because it came to their attention, which she didn't actually say how, that a request was made to have dues check off for our organization. She alluded to the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. That dues check off was requested by me for the organization, which she felt put them in competition to us. So the other thing she said, well, let's break that down first. So I made a request some time ago to Renee Campion for dues checkoff for another retirees association of which I am a leader of. And in that request, it was made February 4th of 2023. It was made to Renee Campion, asking her for FDNY EMS Retirees Association, a smaller group, of asking for dues checkoff for them. We were just coming out of COVID. It was difficult getting to the bank and doing all sorts of things. And we thought, well, let's see what we could do to help put that in place. I wasn't doing that for New York City organization, and my email to Ms. Campion, which I still have right here, specifically says FDNY EMS retirees. We were looking to see if we could streamline the ability to do an automatic dues out of a pension check. Had nothing to do with this. What happened? How did that get to Ann Widger when my email was from Marianne to Renee Campion from OLR? That was an interesting question. I had the same one. So I had asked Renee Campion, because I had heard that Henry was questioning a group of union presidents why I was doing that. How the hell would Henry know? So I went back to Renee Campion and I said, "Dear Ms. Campion, how is it possible that Henry Garrido knows about my request to you for EMS retirees being able to have their association dues taken out of their pension check. And she admitted that she told Henry. She said, upon receipt of my email from February 4th of 2023, I contacted FISA, Office of Payroll Administration, to get additional information regarding dues deductions and application process. It was explained that union dues deducted from pension checks are voluntary, although NYSERS does have a DC 37 Retirees Association deduction. Whether it could accommodate EMS retirees is in the purview of NYSERS and DC 37. Further, in accordance with the Administrative Code Section 13181, the final decision rests with DC 37. So we started looking into that and we were like, what the heck is she talking about? My Retirees Association has nothing to do with DC 37 at all. And many of our members aren't even DC 37 retirees. She said it is, after understanding your request should have been directed to DC 37. No, it shouldn't have. She reached out to Mr. Garrido, of which I had to say something to her about that. And of course, she never replied. As frustrating as that is, that had nothing to do with this, which meant my request went from me to OLR, from OLR to Henry Garrido, from Henry Garrido to Ann Widger. Okay, now you want to know, how did they find out about this situation of DC 37 retirees not filing their 990s? Good question. So DC 37 retirees leadership asked our organization for our 990s so that they could continue in their debate of their board, because what happened was in June of 2023, Ann Widger basically threatened DC 37 retirees and said, if you continue to pay a $2,000 a month donation to that retiree organization, which we consider an antagonistic labor organization interfering in union business, we are going to take you into administratorship. And then they were also at the time, and you had to be in on these meetings to know this. If Ann Widger was in on them, she would have known that Henry Garrido, Anthony Wells, and Sean Francois were also from 371 and 372 threatening Bob that if the organization, Retirees Association, kept supporting this litigation that we were spearheading, that they would stop paying the first year dues of a retiree. Because right now, many locals in the district council pay the first year retiree association dues for their retiring members, getting them to be members of the Retirees Association, and then it's up to the member, the retiree, to continue those annual dues payments. They threatened that they would stop those. I was actually on one of those meetings, listening to one of those meetings where that was being discussed. So I could attest that that actually happened. Whether or not that actually made it into that meeting's minutes, I can't allege that, assert that, know that, and I have no knowledge of that. But I will tell you, I heard it from my own ears. That was a frustrating thing to hear, to be quite honest with you. And we knew that the intimidation was there. It had been discussed. So we said, okay, fine. You want our 990s? Well, we had just filed them. We will give them to you. We gave them to Bob Gervasi, DC 37 Retirees President, and their executive board. Bob didn't want them from me. He wanted them from my lawyer. So we had our attorney from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, our tax lawyer, write them a letter. So she and I were sitting there drafting this one day on a telephone call, and she said, what's the official name of the group? And I said, I honestly don't know. I just call them DC 37 retirees. She said, well, are they a 501c3 or a 501c5? And the question became important because the accountant for DC 37 Retirees Association, Peter DiCarlo, you know, the same guy that didn't file the taxes for the retirees for the last 6 years, asked a question about something that was on our 990. That said, we noted that there was an error on our 990 that was pointed out by their accountant. My attorney looked at it and said, okay, no problem, let's fix this. And she did. She gave it to our accountant to refile, corrected, amended 990 to file with the IRS. We then took that correction and we were giving it back to Bob Gervasi at DC 37 Retirees Association with a letter, because as we were drafting this, she wanted to know the name and what they were, a C3 or a C5, whether they were, what kind of a nonprofit they were, basically. So we said, all right, so she's writing the letter. We looked them up on the irs.gov website, and we note that on the IRS.gov website, it says DC 37 Retirees Association is a 501c5, and also that their 501c5 nonprofit status was revoked due to failure to file taxes. Now, we already know that the IRS is behind because we've been filing stuff with them now for the last 3 years, and they're not getting looked at for months and months and months and months, like a long time, up to our first 990, almost a year. So, and our filing for that tax exempt status also almost a year. So the IRS website says that their site isn't up to date and that it actually could have been corrected. They just don't know. But my attorney wrote them a letter and said, hey, listen, in the course of sending this to you, we looked you up on the IRS website because we were looking to find out what their legal name was for the letterhead, because she was writing them a letter on her letterhead, and she also wanted to know if they were a C3 or a C5 because of the question that they had about one of our expenditures typically only covers people if you're a C3 or C5, and we didn't know what they were. It was an honest lookup. It wasn't like we had some aha moment, but this was actually kind of unusual to find. So she wrote them in that letter and said, hey, listen, by the way, in preparing this letter to you, we looked you up on the IRS website, and we noted that it says that your 501c5 non-tax status was revoked. And if you've already corrected, great, but if you didn't, you should probably look into that. It wasn't anything wrong, bad, targeting, anything. I mean, it's just something we came across by accident. And she wrote that in the letter, then it went to the team. So we had a discussion about it, and it was not a big deal. I mean, the board got her letter, looked at it, talked about it. Well, Bob Gervasi brought it up himself to Ann Widger that this was uncovered in the course of getting our documents back and forth, because I'm taking the assumption Ann wanted to make sure that our organization was a legitimate organization before the DC 37 retirees continued on providing $2,000 a month towards the litigation costs. And that's what we also did. So giving them that document showed that we were paying our lawyers a lot of money. The money goes to fund the organization's needs as well as finance the lawyers. Sadly, Ms. Widger, after my lawyer sent that letter to DC 37 retirees on January 8th, the DC 37 Retirees Association met January 9th. Ann Widger from AFSCME wrote a letter to Lee Saunders on February 12th, not giving them a month, just a month to try to get this in order. It's not going to take a month. It's going to take several months. So you have to recognize that they were starting that process. They had reached out to their accountant. They were already in these conversations. They were doing the right thing to actually try to fix it. And yet, what did she do? Push them into administratorship and then try to blame us, our organization, for that in some weird, awkward way. Doesn't make absolutely any sense. Our organization knows the struggle that they're under because we have to have a bookkeeper. We have to have an accountant. We have to have a tax attorney. This is a lot to juggle. This is like literally running a full gigantic organ. It's like running DC 37. So understand something. The retirees are being smeared and they don't deserve to be smeared, right? That has been a frustrating thing, very much so, that Henry, knowing that Henry had access to this information, the only way AFSCME and Widger would have had more of this information is if Henry didn't go to her. She only would have known about me making a request for my other association to have an automatic dues for our retiree group, which was sanctioned by DC 37 back in 2003, 4, 5, 6, right after 9/11, when we started that organization as a 501c3, by the way. Make sure Stu Leibowitz gave us his blessing and said, hey, at least advertise or advocate that you became members of both groups. And we did, and I am. So this is concerning that there would be this misinformation, and that's why Ann Widger's testimony largely was speculation. She didn't have the facts. So in my testimony, I corrected the record on that. It was very important that that be heard. She also alleges that she also needs to be involved because DC 37 Retirees Association numbers are dwindling. Well, let's see. We just came out of a mass death event called COVID-19. We also have situations where the retirees were not always happy with the Retirees Association's guidance with this Medicare fight. They weren't quick on jumping into it. They did eventually get on board, but that was another great form of frustration because many retirees were fearful for their life and their health benefits. Also, they were being threatened, and I would like to also see, was 371, 372, or any other union within DC 37 not paying DC 37 Retirees Association first year dues? That would also affect their dwindling retirees numbers. So there's a lot more here to say than just her speculation. It is a grave concern that AFSCME would do that, knowing that she had the ability to help educate, train, and be a support. And so did DC 37, and neither one of them did. Trust me, the litigation isn't going away, even if DC 37 stops supporting the retirees' fight for their litigation. We're not going away. So it would behoove Mr. Garrido and Ms. Widger and anybody else who really cares about privatizing Medicare, about protecting Medicare benefits and benefits that are retiree earned. Look, we've been in court for 3 years. We wouldn't have won this many times if we weren't doing something right. We still have levels of appeals to fight. Absolutely right, we do. And we don't know how those will go. But so far, we've kind of been on the right side of justice here. And that should say something. It should also say that nationwide, unions have never privatized Medicare. And this union, our union, DC 37, is supporting privatizing Medicare and going with a for-profit company, installing prior authorizations in narrow networks where many of our doctors don't accept this healthcare plan. We would never have done that. That Aetna itself is being charged with overcharging the government, and they're trying to claw back $25.5 million of overcharges that Aetna charged Medicare. This isn't where we were. And Emblem, the one health insurance company that is a not-for-profit, that is union, OPEIU 153, this is the one you want to kick to the curb, and they've been with you since the inception of the New York City Health Program. This is why retirees keep saying you need to know your history. So for the retirees that appeared today at the DC 37 judicial panel, thank you. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your strength and for your courage and for defending the Retirees Association. They needed you and you were there loud and clear. For the people that struggled, it also was told you were denied access. It was also told to the chair, Ms. Insignia, that you were not allowed into the room. They didn't seem to care that you couldn't get your video on. They didn't seem to care. They just said they were getting emails, but meanwhile, everyone was lighting up my phone, Neil's phone, the cell phone numbers for Donald Affleck. We were all being told you can't get in. We heard you. We shared that message. AFSCME just didn't care. They had a very rigid, stringent video on policy unless you dialed in. And if you kept trying to come in by video and you couldn't get your video on, or you didn't have video, or you didn't have a camera, they didn't let you in. So some people called it a kangaroo court. For the very first time of me watching this and seeing one of these things, I was absolutely disgusted. I'm hoping and I'm praying to God that the chair does the right thing, because there was another way to fix this. Lee Saunders didn't need to do this way. And you deserve to have a retirees association that defends you, that protects what you were told you would have, that protects your traditional Medicare like AFSCME swore that it would for decades. Until now. And truth be told, if the chair comes back and does not reinstate these officers, and the association does not continue to make the $2,000 a month donation towards our legal fight, guess what? I'll let you be the judge of what that means. So for Henry Garrido, shame on you for breaching confidentiality and sharing things, smearing our organization, myself, my EMS retirees, anything else. You should never have brought that into the issue. You maligned people for the wrong reasons, for things that they didn't do that were wrong. You think that's going to hurt us, and it's not. It just made us stronger. Retirees are not backing down. You had a job to do, and that was protect us. You also had a job as a leader, as Victor always said, and as you even commented in that documentary from 1965, which I will re-air again. Unions were born in dissent. We have an AFSCME Bill of Rights that we are free to say what we want to say, even at the criticism of our own union or international. If we disagree with you, that is what we are allowed to do. But you don't communicate. You don't help. You don't educate. Your job was to take this organization under its wings and help them. During COVID, they struggled from a group of 9 people in the office down to a skeleton crew of 2 or 3. They were struggling to meet their demands just like your own unions were. And none of you helped. It also doesn't help that you closed the building and you destroyed that camaraderie of interaction of all of the locals and the local presidents and their staffs. And that building is still not open. Their mail didn't get to them timely because they kept going to Barclay Street and had to keep being funneled around everywhere else. This is a failure, all the way up to the international, not just them. Time will tell. But for the retirees, I'm telling you this. The New York City Organization Public Service Retirees Board is going to continue to fight this litigation, this being forced into Medicare Advantage, and protect you. As our attorneys tell us all the time, no one will protect you but yourself. We thought we had support. Clearly, it's evident that we don't. The AFSCME Judicial Panel will make a decision within 30 days of receiving the transcript from today's court reporter. Once they have that it was a 4-hour hearing. Once they have that transcript, they have 30 days to make a decision. I will hold off judgment until we hear what they decide. Unions have enough trouble. The last thing you need to do is be attacking your retirees. And this is exactly what this turned into. This didn't have to be this way. But retirees, this made retirees stronger. Sorry, Henry, you didn't win this one.